so with that, I'm going to turn it over to David, because this network process begins to set up a thinking about, well, then also where do you place your station within this? How does the station become this kind of key node within this district that you're creating? And David wanted to really kind of talk through some of these great places that we can look at from other parts of the country to give us services.
Just one quick thing before David. I know some of you did come here to talk about the network, and again, I just want to let you know that there's a room set up next door to us. If anybody from Ashley Street wants to go and talk about things, we'll be over there. So if nobody wants to go. All right, we'll get to the next.
So I'm David Spillane, and I'm part of the DOT's consultant team, and I'm going to sort of set this up in terms of talking about some of the kind of issues we might think about in terms of what would make a really good urban transportation station. I'm then going to show you, some case studies from some other communities, which have some elements, some good, some bad in each case, some which are parallels to some of the kind of things we're working at and thinking about and struggling with here. And then Bill Kenworthy from the city's consultant team's going to talk about some of the ideas the city's been thinking about. And I hope what I'm going to sort of set up in terms of, what we might think about what would make a good station, and some examples from other places will be helpful then in terms of the specific conversation about some of the ideas the city's bringing forward, for you to be thinking about as you're looking at those. So, at a very basic level, these are some of the things I'm going to go through you might think about in terms of creating a successful, urban, transportation center as we're thinking about for rail and bus. Well, it should be in a good location, should be centrally located. It needs to be well connected to residents and jobs. I think it should be, in this case, an iconic design, something that speaks to the importance of transportation and within the region. It should be a catalyst for future things to evolve and develop around it. And I think that importantly in urban context, it's really something that wants to be compact. It minimizes the amount of land. So let me just take you through these, and there's a handout on the table, one page where these are written down. So I just want to take them very, quickly, so one by one. Central location. I always think in these situations you want to think about a location first that serves existing businesses and existing residents, but also provides opportunity for future growth. But the location should really be well positioned to serve existing businesses and residents, and then look to the future. Second, well connected. You can be centrally located, but if you don't have strong pedestrian connections from the stations to where people are looking to go, you're really not going to have a successful station. So that's about pedestrian connections. It's also about strong bicycle connections. It also means typically in stations that you want to separate how the vehicles get access to the station, how pedestrians get access to the station, so that the flows in and out of the stations are really strong. And I think typically in some of the most successful stations, it means that the primary entrance really is a pedestrian entrance, and there really aren't conflicts with vehicles and buses and taxis and other things of that kind. Third, I think is really about iconic design, something that sort of stands out, stands for the importance. And there are different kind of iconic designs. This happens to be one Tony shared with us last week from a city in the Netherlands. This is Arnhem, an interesting station, interesting location. But iconic, could be in traditional design, or it could be more contemporary design. Very often in some of the best stations, they're linked to a public space around the station, whether that's a station square or a gathering place, so people can congregate and enjoy the area around the station. Also, I think it's important that the station is really visible, that as you look down major streets, as you're far away from it, it's something that's visible and you can see, not something that's buried and hard to detect. And I think to be, really successful, the ability to combine, bus and rail at a single, point. So you're really going to the transportation station. It doesn't matter whether you're getting on a train or getting on a bus. So we can coalesce all the services in that location. So iconic design. A catalyst, I think that means that the station's in a place where it promotes future growth and urban activity around it. So some of the things there that are consideration is you don't put the station on the site that would be the most appealing for future private sector development around it. You find the right place for it and try and maximize the potential, or consider options for station location that maximize potential for other kinds of development you're looking for around that. And that might be development, but it also might be open space, or civic space, or civic uses and functions. And last, you're really looking for a station that's as compact as it can be, so you can really maximize opportunities for open space development, for other kinds of development, and you don't have a station that really sort of spreads out and really takes over the district it's looking at. This also raises sort of questions about how much frontage the station has. Stations can be very large. They can have frontages which are hundreds of feet long and are relatively dead when there's not a lot of activity there. So thinking about ways that you can site a station so it really has active frontages as it faces the city and is as compact in terms of the way it fits in is another sort of consideration. So I'm going to very quickly go through a couple of case studies, which I'm sure there are other ones we could look at, but some of these offer some similarities to what we're doing. I'm going to start with Back Bay Station in Boston, talk very briefly about Union Station in Connecticut, the Amtrak station in Providence, which is part of a much larger development, which has many similarities to the issues we're dealing with here. Portland, Maine station, which is less of an urban station, and then very briefly South Station in Boston. So let me take the first one. So Back Bay Station, and you'll see in each of these, station is centered in the middle here, and what we've drawn each case is a 5-minute, walking distance. But if you're familiar with Back Bay Station, it sits between historic neighborhoods on one side and really a downtown environment on the other. In many ways, very similar to the siting of a station in the Asylum Hill area, with downtown on one side and then the neighborhoods really to the other. It's a pretty iconic station design. It's got very strong bicycle and pedestrian connections. It actually is at the terminus of the Southwest Corridor Park, which is a major pedestrian and bike corridor which feeds into the core of the city. And I think the station does a pretty good job of separating how buses access the building versus how pedestrians do so. It's surrounded by a mixed-use transit-oriented development. It has pretty successfully integrated a below-grade rail line, such as we have here, and a below-grade highway. And it works all those things in ways that when you're looking at it on the surface, it's pretty seamless. You wouldn't really think that's what was going on. And it's been reasonably successful, but not perfect, I think, in terms of integrating parking and retail as part of the station complex. So this is the station. You're looking at it. We're sort of in the park that comes up from the other side of the street and really ends with the station. There's the station in the middle. This is sort of housing development, cafe space, open space, high quality, space that really sort of focuses on the station building you see right there. And this is looking at it, in its street. It does a pretty good job in terms of the front. Taxis do pick up and drop off there, but the buses are not there. You see the bike share station across the street, and the park is moving off on that area. makes a pretty strong impression on the streetscape. It includes some retail along its frontage, along the street.
David,
edge right there.
which is the station? Is it the tall building in the back?
Station is this building here.
Okay.
You sort of see the arch, large station hall, and there are lower wings on these side. This side's got small restaurant inside that is along that edge of the street. This may sort of help a little bit more. So what we've got here is, here's the station building. Here's the garage that's beside it. This is the Southwest Corridor Park I talked about. That the rail lines below that park connects up here. This is an important bike corridor. Station sits here. Rail lines continue through there. I-90, the Massachusetts Turnpike, is coming through here. It goes below this garage structure. On this location, we've got street level retail all around here. Open space and pedestrian plazas over the highway that comes below these streets. And if you're in this area, you really wouldn't be aware that either the rail line or the highway is going through that corridor. There's a drop-off, pickup area here to the back where buses come in and out. So a lot of things here that I think are relatively similar. I think many of them are done pretty successfully here. It does have this unique combination of below-grade rail, highway, parking structure, station that fits, I think, pretty well with a historic street. So, next, very quickly, Union Station in New Haven. One of the big struggles historically with Union Station is too far from the center of New Haven. So what you see, I think it doesn't really meet the standard of centrally located. It sits right here. This is New Haven Green here. So that's, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Area around the station is something the city's working very hard on. It's a very confusing area. There's a lot of disconnected streets there. It's pretty confusing. The city's working hard in solving these problems now, but for more than 30 years, very little's happened around the station. It's sort of a little bit beached in that area. And the State Street station, which as you can see there, doesn't have quite the same service, but it's certainly better located in terms of its connection to New Haven Green. And one of the consequences here of just how poor this pedestrian environment is and how hard it is to figure out how to get through here is, we have a tremendous number of folks who work here at Yale New Haven Hospital, which are literally a 5-minute walk from the station. But many of those people are getting shuttle buses because it's just confusing. It feels like it's much further. It's hard to get there. So there are sort of problems there. So we've got weak pedestrian connections. They're confusing. As you come out of the station, it's actually a beautiful station building. But there are shuttles and taxis and confusion, and if you're a pedestrian, you're fighting your way through all of that. That's something, again, the city's working on. And just because of all these factors, it hasn't been a very successful area in terms of supporting, additional transit-oriented development, which would create the kind of environment that would make it pleasant to walk through. So that's what it looks like in front of the station. This picture doesn't completely get it, but you've got all this drop-off and pick-up for taxis. People are coming out of the station. They're trying to figure out how to get across the street and then where to go. So that's a work in progress. Next, Providence Station is really pretty interesting. This station was relocated as part of the Capitol Center redevelopment. The station really has become the anchor for a whole new development district, which continues to evolve. It's probably halfway through its evolution. Like us, the station is below grade. It was above grade, but it was pushed laterally into a hill and then dropped below grade. Pretty strong pedestrian connections between downtown and neighborhoods, and also good access from the new station to the Capitol complex in a way that's pretty similar. And in this case, the new station left the existing station vacant, and that's been really successfully reused for a different purpose. So you see again the 5-minute walking distance station is here, downtown Hartford, down city. This is sort of Capitol Center, which I'll show a picture, and then we've got the Capitol up there. So this probably makes the picture a little clearer. Down here we have what was the station historically. Tracks are coming in through here. They used to come down here and then come around like this, and they've been moved up, so they're in this corridor. So you see the tracks here. That's the station. They disappear below grade here. There's open space over the tracks, which just extends the open space, up to the Capitol. This development has been sort of master planned so that you've got mixed-use development, a number of housing towers. This is headquarters of Blue Cross Blue Shield. A number of housing and mixed-use development projects, and then this important civic space here, which is Water Place Park, which is where there are these many different kind of performances and civic activities, but then an open corridor that maintains views of the Capitol coming down to this new street, which carries a fair amount of traffic, but is a well-designed street. That's Memorial. Boulevard. So I think this has, in many ways, I think many of the pieces we're working with. It has, it's a new development district. It includes open space. It connects to the city. The train station is one of the catalysts for development, and it's fairly compact. This is the historic station. As it at this postcard, it was called the New Union Station. No longer new. This building, which you saw, has been repurposed. There's a brew pub. Providence Foundation has offices there. A range of other uses. There's park space here on either side, and this area, which was an access point to the station, is now a space that is an ice rink, outdoor ice rink in winter, and it hosts performances and events in the summer. So that's something where the station is really being sort of effectively used. But one of the things this whole project did is it really opened the city up to the Capitol, which at that time was really separated by rail lines in that location there. So I think there's some lessons here. Is the building iconic? Well, I'm not sure it quite gets there. It's a fairly modest, building. It's clearly being designed to be somewhat sympathetic to the Capitol, but that's one side of it. Not looking so good for a pedestrian in this particular image. It's a little better than that in reality. And then the other side, and this is the station facing the road which goes up to the Capitol complex. This is not a successful station edge on that primary open space. The vehicles on here don't help. And I think one could argue whether a one-story station building is the right use for that kind of park frontage, or whether there were opportunities for more significant amounts of development there. Portland, Maine, I'm going to go this very quickly. This is, again, not a centrally located station. I think it's a station that downtown Portland, over there. It's where the rail line is. I think there was an interest in development springing up around the station that really hasn't materialized. It really focuses on highway access. It's vehicular oriented. This is what it looks like. It's not compact. Essentially the bus station and the train station spread out. It's a parking environment. It's not a pedestrian friendly environment. And then lastly, this one is very quick. This is South Station, in Boston, which has been an interesting story, because South Station really was a declining, shabby transportation center 25 years ago, and it was really sort of reemerged as a iconic, sort of vibrant place in the city. And that has been part of the big dig, in that there were large highway viaducts that went in front of this building, which are now gone, and it's the end of a major urban greenway. The building is being rehabilitated. But the one thing I wanted to talk about with South Station was really, that's clearly how it looks like from, the front, classic, iconic, station. Some of the new access ways, through these pyramid structures to let people go under the street. But the point I want to make, I guess I will also say here that this is a case where the streets on the side of the station have highway elements below grade. This is the train station. This is the bus station behind. There's parking on the roof over the bus station. This is the most visible and prominent part, but I think they've done a pretty good job, on this side. And one of the difficulties sometimes with these stations is where you get the long edges, particularly of bus stations. They don't make particularly appealing, urban street edges. But I think, they've done a pretty good job here. That's the bus station you're looking at the right. In terms of creating a street that's got appealing landscape, the pickup and drop off works pretty well. But importantly, the buses aren't going in and out here. That bus access is really separated from the pedestrian access. And I think that's the last one. So hopefully that will help as Bill talks through some of the thoughts the city's coming forward with in terms of the station, or elements of this station in the district, and how that might work. I'll just sort of add before I stop. I mean, one of the conversations I think we've had is, are we confident that this area is the right location for the station? And that could be north, it could be south of Asylum. And I think our team's pretty confident this is the right location for the station, and it really can meet each of these criteria we've outlined, but how well it meets them really, I think, ultimately relates to how the station is designed and how it relates to the environment around it. And these are, very critical design questions which we'll get with that.
Thank you, David. Hi, I'm Bill Kenworthy. I'm a principal and leader of planning for our New York office for HOK. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit. I'm kind of getting the chance to tell you like the end of the story. These guys have built up such a great, Tom and David, the ideas about the connections to the city, the DNA of the train station. Now, my drawings are really about what that might mean for Hartford. And these are just some initial sketches and some ideas about how a train station, a transit center, and the surrounding development might be able to fit into the city. So this first sketch is looking at a train station in red north of Asylum, a bus station in blue to the east of the highway across from the existing train station. Green showing the potential open space connections outside of the street grid, so opportunities for public realm and park spaces. And then the orange in all these sketches is the opportunity for new mixed-use development that can occur around the stations.
And where are the highway ramps coming out?
Highway ramps, at the moment, this is consistent with the trans systems options that they had talked about coming out on Bushnell West, and there's another one coming out on Edwards here. But the real strategy for the story is about putting the train station to the north, the bus station nearby as close as we can in terms of that compact footprint. The idea of connecting Garden Street down maybe to the back of the train station as an opportunity for vehicular drop-off, so you can keep Asylum clean in terms of drop-off and loading. The opportunity to have more robust drop-off back here. And a street to connect into Spruce, where the existing station is, to take a lot of that loading and servicing for vehicles off of the train station from Asylum. The other idea behind this is really a diagonal connection through the blocks south of Asylum that could create an open space and visual corridor up to the Garden Street area and Asylum Hill, down to the State House and Bushnell Park. And you see the residual areas for opportunities for development that can occur around that. In this location, we're showing that maybe that there's some access drives that go around the bus station and new development. This could also be decked over open spaces that could connect east-west in addition, but not focused on open spaces, not necessarily building development on top of the highways, because that's more of a challenge. But looking at creating development around the highway that allows for connections and even an opportunity for more open space development over the highway locations, but again, trying to keep development off the highway footprint and the ramp footprint itself. So this is one idea about how you might be able to develop a transit center and mixed-use framework of development around this part of town.
How do the buses get, what's the route for the buses?
The buses could either work off Spruce here, or there might be options to bring off this new drive that come through here. So there's two frontages of streets that there could be bus connections. That's part of the program we're still studying in terms of the operations, how that would actually work in this part of town.
And just before, because I'm glad that everyone's immediately excited about the ideas, these are really just formative thoughts. And one of the goals of today is to get your reaction, to begin thinking about how the train and the bus, CT Fast Track, the developments all relate, so that as we continue to evolve these notions of how this fits in, what are some of the things that you see as being really problematic, but some of the things you see as being possibly really effective. So just want to, it's not like we know exactly where every stop and spot is, but this is an attempt to begin that process. So.
Yeah, if we could just jump back, I have looked at this, and one of the things that concerns me is the Asylum Avenue is going to become a very urban street, and the station being right at the street frontage, it really doesn't allow for an open space that you really want to have in front of the station. I don't have anything against the solution, but I think this could be improved if the station was set back from the street, maybe the depth of the station itself, to allow that open space in front of the station.
At the size of the sketch, we're starting to suggest that. We can certainly add more. There's about 30 feet of sidewalk in front of the station from the drop-off area. There could be even more, though. We could study if there's greater open spaces. But the intention here was to try to begin to shape that on the north and pull it through, so there's the beginning of that network. But that feedback is very important for us. If I could just talk about the option to the south, because that gets at another configuration of open space and how we might do that. Because again, the connection to the city, the opportunity for civic spaces around the train station is something consistent with many of the train stations that we've seen in the studies that David and we have done looking at the opportunities here. In this case, we're looking at a location south of Asylum. In this case, we've redirected Farmington into our development through here, breaking the Trident that way, locating the bus station to the south of that train station. Breaking the Trident allows us a couple things. It allows us to stick a nose of that train station up into the view corridor from Asylum from downtown, looking up the hill, so you could have a very visible location for your train station, as well as from the west down the existing Asylum and Farmington geometries that exist today. So this building becomes very prominent in this case.
Would that be prominently visible from the park with the orange development sites that you've shown between the two?
If that was really important in this scheme, we could find a way to begin to cut the development back so you can maintain those view corridors up. In this case, it's a little bit of a different option. We're looking at bringing a square along Asylum to create opportunities for address for the train station as well as the new development, to create an opportunity for open space over the highway area. Again, you don't want to build buildings over there. And to keep the continuity of the Garden Street corridor, not necessarily through that square, but into this development area here, and then the shifting of that alignment down so you could have a connection to the park this way. A smaller aperture than we were drawing in the previous scheme, as you can see, but just another way we could connect through and create more opportunities for development frontage on the park. But again, these are initial ideas, so if everyone thought we should open that up more, we can make a better connection.
And where are the highway ramps?
The highway ramps in this case are still reflecting the scheme that was presented by Trans Systems.
They're really looking little, okay.
Well, again, and I think the idea here is to use that template of where we're looking at the ramps to begin to see feasibility of integrating and building in. I think we are all working together to look at how those ramps are positioned exactly and how they relate to the local street system as we go through this process.
The ramps can probably be nudged here and there if they had to be too, couldn't they?
So in this scenario, Broad Street, which is sort of terminates at Farmington Ave, and some of the other scenarios would become a higher, looks like it would become a higher volume motor vehicle traffic street. So in that case, I would say it's crucial to restore for bikes and pedestrians the north-south direct route of Flower Street, because then we lose, we gain some available passability. It's still not direct, but when that gets cut off, but then we lose that in this
If
scenario.
we could enhance the connection of this diagonal garden through a square, through a park space here and down through here, would that be a suitable route that could be taken north-south, or do you need a
No.
more direct route?
No,
from Broad
because we're trying to go that way, not
That's important to
go
know.
a mile out of the way, yeah.
I mean, we're looking top down, but when I'm thinking about this spot, you're on that street right in front of the train station's a steep hill.
This one here?
Nope, nope,
Train
the one,
station.
the red
Oh, this
going
one
up the
here.
hill.
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so just like site selection wise and pedestrian access from downtown to there, I don't, thinking about placement relative to at the top of a steep hill.
Uh-huh.
I mean, your sight line's going to be better. You're going to be able to see the Capitol from there.
Uh-huh.
But your pedestrians or anybody that has mobility limitations is going to be a little hesitant to take the climb.
So between just to frame the conversation, in terms of the two station locations, is this any better, having a site closer this way?
I think it's better.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
The challenge is trying to hit, at least with the rail platform location right now, is really configured here.
Yeah.
So we need to try to get the portion of the train station to hit that in some location. So that's part of the challenge, is how we site the rail station at this point.
Do you have a version of this with the topographic lines? Because I think that would be helpful. To
We
see
could-
that
we could-
slope.
We could lay that on there
Yeah.
easily.
I agree with that statement, because I think one of the things that kind of goes underappreciated here is the elevation shift that's occurring across this parcel. And to go back, I know we're talking about placement, but when we get to iconic design, you know, if this becomes a thriving facility like it should be, it will be seen by more citizens today than almost anywhere else in town. And it's the opportunity, I think, to put a really iconic design at a place that would be visibly seen from quite a few different perspectives. And, you know, I'm just always concerned we get so practical and functional, and then we get in and we'll spend billions of dollars, plop something in like a single-story concrete kind of fiasco I saw, and you'll have lost an opportunity. So aesthetics, I do think, go a long way. Make a statement, it will be something that will be able to be seen from quite a few areas in downtown for quite a few decades. So I'd hate to just lose perspective with that. So placement and its relative views, I think of the bridge they did in Boston and how you can see it from so many different angles and how it's added to kind of the skyline. So I don't have so much of a concern about how it flows in and around. I'm sure you'll make those traffic patterns work, but I would like to see us not lose focus of the opportunity to do something that's a bit of a statement here. So.
Yeah?
In both of these drawings, are you proposing eliminating the YWCA? That building is now gone, and Farmington Avenue is curving.
This particular alignment does take out the YWCA, but we're looking at strategies that leave the building in place, so we could still have a routing of Farmington that doesn't come into the Trident, but comes into Broad Street.
So I think that what we're trying to look at, and you know, at this scale, is there a way to bring Farmington down? We had showed some pictures before of different ways of thinking about it. One of the challenges of bringing Farmington to the south or to the east is keeping it far enough away from Asylum so that you can process traffic, and also bringing it down in such a way that it doesn't impact upon the ramps. And so we're looking at a lot of different ways in which it can be feasible to bring it down. This is just one
Does that include
option.
raising the YWCA?
In this particular scheme, we've kinked Farmington Avenue over in the spot where the YMCA is, but it is not.
It's not required. We're looking at alignments to keep the YMCA, but still make the same option that's not as steep. So we're testing that now.
But,
Yeah, I would hope.
okay.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, in option one, you basically put in a new bus station right across the street from the existing Union Station. I was just wondering why you're not considering continuing to use Union Station as the bus station.
Well, that certainly can still be part of the options for looking at this. We've tried to keep as compact a footprint for the transit center, both rail and buses, as we can. Also integrating the parking component, which in most cases is stacked with the bus footprint because they happen to be simpatico in terms of the current configuration of program. But I think that there's conversation about how that could be broken up into different pieces today, which may include the existing station.
And can I ask you a question about that? what would be the, in your mind, the opportunity associated with keeping the buses at the existing station?
Well, I mean, it's a historic building, it's, you know.
So
it's
use the
an
buses to
important
make it
part of
a
Hartford. What was that?
use the buses and the fact that you saw the transit facility at that location to make that a new, okay.
And then, I mean, really, in the image, it's right across the street. I think, you know, what's there now where the blue boxes is parking for Union Station, so it just
Yes.
seems silly to me to spend all this money to build a new bus station when there's one right there already. That's a historic part of Hartford.
As an addition to that, though, wouldn't it be possible to you're going to get rid of all the tracks and everything that go into the Union Station today? So that would become a building that was available for redevelopment, and it could be a great redevelopment use of
That's
a
correct.
historic building.
That's an opportunity.
I think it would be better unencumbered by any legacy uses like buses and very attractive to a developer.
If you decide that Union Station is not going to be a part of a new transportation system, have you looked at an alternative to jamming both the bus station and the train station into this area where it's traditionally been a transportation center? I wondered if you thought of looking farther north, say along Walnut Street, where the challenges of the photography would be less, where you have a lot of open space that's already vacant that could be used.
Looking
Yes.
up in this area.
Up in that area there.
For the bus facility.
Both.
For both.
Because you're right on the train, you're on the train tracks and the street system, and you don't have to struggle and stress to try to figure out how to stretch the buildings to cover both of those in that area because they're all right in the same place. And I don't know who owns the land, but it's empty, it's vacant, it's a parking lot, it's that sort of thing. It's up by the public safety complex.
That starts to bump into the lumber yard, I think.
Yeah, the lumberyard has looked to move for years and years, so I mean, we could make a deal.
The main vertical head house locations go down to the platform, or to this red box in this location in the station footprint, that red box and that red box. So that's the flexibility of location, at least with the existing.
What I like
storage.
about farther north is you don't have to descend. You're right on the track.
Because the hill has actually come down some.
It's sort of flattened out. I think there's enough of an elevation rise that you could use that for parking or something that doesn't show, but basically it's flatter. That was
The end of your
that's the end of my conversation.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, in terms of that, moving the station north, I mean, we've been trying to get a front door of the train station as a civic front door on Asylum or Farmington in some way. In that case, it wouldn't be so important. Is that a priority for folks to try to have the train station have a civic front door on either of those main streets?
Well, I don't think it is, number one. And number
No.
two is it would open up that space for more creative development and not have to figure out how to squeeze a transportation center into a spot that really maybe is a little awkward. And it, rather than use what do you call it, Occupy Hartford or something, that park, it seems to me has a lot more other opportunities for development that would be better than a train station.
However,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
want to add one thing to that discussion, which I think will help us all be sort of on the same page, because the city did ask Trans Systems to take a look at moving the station northward. And the issue is that you need to have 1,000 feet of straight track. And it's not really possible to get that as we move around because of other lines coming in and out. And I don't know that in this set of slides there's anything to illustrate that, but we were pretty satisfied after the look was made that, no, you couldn't, because we saw a lot of benefit of opening up new development opportunities by moving up there. But it did not look like that was something that could be done easily.
Did you consider the whole area all the way up to the tunnel?
Yeah.
Sure, you had something?
Well, yeah, I mean, I understand what Bob, is looking at the area, it's more level, there's more room, it's easier to get to. But by just looking at it, it seems to me that the highway itself is gonna become another barrier between the station at the location and downtown. I'm not sure if that's how far back we wanna go.
Walnut Street connects to Trumbull pretty easily.
Right, I mean, one of the things about a train station is you want to have it in a location that it's easily accessed, not only by pedestrian, but also by automobile. And if we are going through the efforts of routing 84 in the train tracks to make this whole effort, but then putting the station again behind the highway, with the highway now remaining as a barrier, I'm not sure if really that would help downtown.
You also lose the opportunity for a highly visible, iconic building.
Right.
Because that's a much more invisible space.
So just to your point of that notion, your initial concern was that you don't have enough space here to properly put a train station? And that's the rationale for moving it? Or do you think the site's better served for other uses?
Number one, I thought there's a chance it could be better used in another way. Second is, I think the topography issues that have been discussed already are ameliorated somewhat by moving it farther north. I don't know whether the train, since we're already rerouting the train tracks down there, whether you could straighten out a section to make it work or not. Clearly, my idea is not deeply developed, but.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I think the key is the takeaways of what's motivating that thought process and trying to think about, well, okay, so how can we make something work? Because we have a challenging topo at that location. I mean, it's been brought up by a couple of people. How do you make this pedestrian experience a strong one? Irrespective of where the station goes, I think we want to make this pedestrian experience a strong one, anyway. Whether that works for, I think one of the things we've been thinking about is how much pressure is put on Asylum to be the only way to connect from here to here. So you want to populate Asylum to really make it that strong, attractive street. But we also think maybe there's chances to kind of support that with some other local roads that can bring people.
And to that point, to the degree we have a long frontage train station, that might want to be more compressed because of the slope.
Yeah.
So you can have great front doors on here and not require multi-level changes.
Yeah, some of those examples that David showed, although they might be attractive, those train stations, they are a long expanse of barrier that is not as walkable as multiple retail or other kinds of things.
One of the reasons I like the train station where it was in option one is the fact that it's built over the highway in land that otherwise wouldn't be developed upon. We've talked about how difficult it is to build over the highway. I like the fact that it's using that space creatively in that regard. Some of the options the DOT has presented previously also had the parking and the bus bus interactions over the highway as well. So my tweak to that design would be to push the bus parking over the highway and then opening up more developable space between the existing Union Station and the bus parking.
Oh yeah, definitely.
For Frog Hollow, we like the train station where it is as opposed to further north because it's more easily accessible. One of the things that we've been pushing
When you say
for.
where it is, do you mean where it is now or where it is in this drawing?
One of those two locations as opposed to pushing the station further north. And it's just basically because it's closer to Frog Hollow, it's easier for us to access. Along the lines of what has been mentioned as well as about, one of the things that we're strongly pushing for in this project is not just better connectivity between Asylum Hill and downtown, but also between Frog Hollow and downtown. And I wonder if a way to do that is by reconnecting Flower Street, if we can extend that cap to Flower Street over the highway so that we have a more direct connect to Bushnell Park and Flower Street, open up some of those sight lines. Yes.
Thank you.
No, I think I would like it further north just because it seems to be concentrating. I mean, Union Station now, the buses and that little tiny street, it's a lot of congestion and there's a highway ramp down there, but now you're going to be moving the train station and a new highway ramp into a smaller area instead of, it's more concentrating and taking out a lot of housing. residential in that, along the road there. It feels very squeezed or jammed, as Bob said.
Any other thoughts? Yes.
I would speak up for a compact design similar to option one in that area. I think that particularly pedestrian and bicycle connectivity are a key issue. And the more compact the design, the more ability we have to do that. And it can certainly be iconic, as you say, if you want to do that. But I just think it makes more sense. Connections to Bushnell Park, connections to the Capitol. I love the idea of sight lines. So yeah.
I would put in a pitch for the design that Bill McCarsky and I had developed together here. If you start with the view corridor between the Hartford and the Capitol, and what you put between the two,
This corridor here.
well, you're not quite on it, but yes. And make that connection between, visually, make that connection with a transit mall that comes off a roundabout that replaces the Trident. Essentially, a Farmington Avenue extension that goes from that roundabout to Bushnell Park West. And that's where all the buses go, and the bikes, and the pedestrians. And the
So you're
station
saying-
itself.
You're saying that the bus facility comes down here
Right,
somewhere?
right. And the station itself is more like what you have here, only it wouldn't be blocking the view corridor. It would be a little bit south and a little bit to the right.
I'm going to pull up, Tony, one of the ones that we sketched out there. Similar to that. Sorry, it wasn't up a little bit late.
That's right.
There's an idea.
Different photos.
Concept G, is that what you're thinking of? Concept G is the closest to what we've been thinking.
So just, it's a new map. Can I borrow that pointer? Sure. So, new map, you can see farm, this has the Trident kind of configured
Yeah.
as it is today.
Uh-huh.
Asylum, Broad, Bushnell Park West is Road A with the ramps. The ramps kind of come out from underneath the cap. So the idea, again, here is that it's really using that cap space between Asylum, Broad, Bushnell Park West, and this new road here.
Right.
To constitute the transit system.
Right, that's very, very, very similar to what?
Well,
I'll give you a copy of this.
No, I think we probably have it, but yeah, no, yeah, if you want to move on with this.
I don't think you have a copy of this.
Have you sent that one, Bill? I know. we've got
I
quite a
probably,
few things.
we just did that last night.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay.
I said 2 in the morning, that's why I'm
I'm not
tired.
clairvoyant.
But that concept also includes development on, part of the transportation center on the north as well. Like a garage that could be built in the first phase above the new highway alignment.
And one of the interesting things I think about having facilities south of Farmington Asylum, one of the CT fast track alternatives under consideration, they're still kind of filtering through the 3 or 4 that we're looking at. One of them would have a tunnel for CT fast track that would go underneath Broad Street and kind of merge into this road down here. And one of the strongest benefits of having the station site here would be to allow some connectivity from that directly into the station site, whereas in some of the other concepts that are located up to the north, it's a CT fast track route would be a little bit more circuitous to get there.
One sort of thing I'd say in defense, well, sort of two notions kind of more toward the idea of a more southerly location for rail station. And one reason I was asking about the contour lines and sort of the topography is if a station more or less at Asylum and Broad, give or take, if the land slopes enough, that could potentially essentially be a 2 or 3 story building at that corner and maybe a 6 story building, because I don't know how much of a drop off there is. So you could potentially stack a lot in there. and it would still be very visible without a huge footprint. And the other thing is, some of the hardest people to convince to actually to support good transit, anything that isn't very car-centric, is to convince lawmakers that this is a good idea. And if we have a really good transit facility that's so close that they'll start to think about, well, maybe I can, like a lot of Washington politicians do, they take Amtrak to the nation's capital. If this is something where, wow, this is actually really close and it works, then that could kind of help not only gain support for transit in Hartford, but statewide.
I like where this is going, with the station and the bus hub actually, interacting directly and over the Capitol Highway. That's something that I'm coming around to as being excited about because of the limitations that other developments would have. If I'm looking at this and thinking of other connections that would be good to make, I would think, is that Vine Street up that dies? I would think that wants to come all the way down to Spruce. Garden Street.
Garden Street
Up in the left corner. I would want to.
Garden Street should come to
I would want to
Asylum.
grid street that into Spruce. And then I would be thinking about how to put the parking garage that this is going to have far enough away from it that people have to cross the street and walk past places to buy food, and not put it in that same development. I would put it north of Asylum over the other cap, so they have to cross the street and pass businesses and walk a little ways outside.
The notion of taking these nodal elements and dispersing them a little bit so that you get people more oriented.
Specifically the parking garage. That we put them inside the building or under the building, and folks that come in go straight to their destination, either corporate headquarters or rail station, and they never, spend money in the city.
Can I ask a question about the Garden Street extension to Spruce? Because that is something that we've talked with the WSP HOK team about. I mean, would you feel as strongly about that street if it was a 10% hill? The street was that steep.
I see it as your way to not walk or ride on Asylum, which is your scarier route if somebody's just trying to get across town.
Sure.
Like we haven't said it yet, but you want to design your transportation network for everyone between age 8 and 80, such that you could imagine them independently getting across that on their own. And I know what Asylum is now, and this doesn't look like it'll make it any less busy. And I wouldn't recommend it to anyone that's 8 or 80.
From a cyclist safety standpoint.
Anybody. I mean, I wouldn't want an 80-year-old in a car on Asylum.
Watch your mouth.
Or anyone in a car on Asylum. So.
Apologies to all 80-year-olds in the room.
Sorry, not.
And 8-year-olds.
Well, just one more thing between this option 2 and option 1, as well as the other option of where the station is on the lower side. One of the things to keep in mind and consider is the drop-off and pickup area for both the train station and the bus station, and how does that impact the flow of traffic from the highway in and out of the highway. So if we look at option 1, for example, the drop-off area and pickup area for the station, the bus, it's closer to the exit ramps at the highway on the north side, and that may create a conflict in those streets. Whereas on the south side, in this solution here, or the other one, the on and off, the drop off and pick up area both for the station and the bus station are off the grid on their own, and there's much less conflict with the rest of the highway traffic. So, to me, that's worth considering in finding the right solution, the right location.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, you want all modes to be very effective and seamlessly and easily moving in and out of this area. The buses coming and going should not be conflicting with pedestrians. The pickup and drop off, which is a different cycle. So I think you make a very good point about starting to think about the different elements. I know you probably can't read this, my handwriting is very sloppy, but the different elements of how people access the station and what kind of road works for what kind of access. And I think that's a really important point, and that's something we definitely need to get into and consider as we begin to shape exactly where these pieces fit into this urban fabric.
Thanks.
Well, yes, sir.
Sorry, I'm getting a little lost in the weeds here. If I'm on 84 right now, and here's the public safety complex, and here's the foot guard, now it's starting to rise. The whole point, we're bringing this down. So I'm going to be staying at grade level at this point. We're an off-ramp right off the Spruce Street and the point, and conversely an on-ramp back to 84 westbound right there. You're going to be losing the exits on Asylum, Sigourney, and Sisson, correct? Westbound.
Yes. Wait, not Sigourney.
Sigourney's staying.
Yeah.
Sisson you're losing, and Asylum you're losing. Right?
System changes.
Yes.
Not losing.
But we're gaining an off-ramp right there, right where it curves. Now, if I'm at the train station right now looking out and I see the street, the parking lot, the elevated highway, so Asylum Street's rising over westbound and it's below eastbound.
No.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right now.
Yeah.
Eastbound's coming down.
Yes.
Yes. From a east-west point of view, where is the eastbound going? Is it going farther west?
Yeah, so on this map, the existing highway is right here.
Yep.
The entire freeway is proposed to be relocated a couple hundred feet to the west.
To the west. And where are the new tracks going to be? East
to the west. To the west of that. That's this.
Are they going to be about where the 84 eastbound elevated part is right now, and from an east to west point of view? Is that?
They will actually be. Well, you should answer this, but they will be lower than that, where the tracks are coming through. They'll actually be at the height of where the new I-84 will be going through.
And from a topography point of view, is that going to be, if I'm right where the on-ramp is for 84 west right there, and then it starts, Asylum Street starts to rise. From a topography point of view, where the tracks would be down here, way up at the peak of the same, like
way
relatively broad
down here. They'd be about 40 feet below Asylum Street. So,
okay.
So they're actually the same level they're at today. But because of the height of Asylum Hill, they're now, rather than being above Asylum Street like they are today, they're now 40 feet below to pass beneath Farmington and Asylum.
So they'll be tunneled, or just like totally tunneled, like you're saying, they just want to kind of just cap the around either side?
It would likely be, it would seem like a tunnel as you were in the railroad.
Maybe look at the 3D model.
Yeah.
It's really going to portray much easier for you.
You guys already, I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's what these are for. So let me go to the existing first. It's what you have today.
Yes.
So freeway's there, goes over Asylum and under Asylum.
Right.
Speak up, Nick. Sorry. So today you have it like this, where the freeway, the westbound lanes go underneath Asylum, eastbound lanes go over. Here you have the Capitol View Apartments, and this is Asylum Hill. Show the Trident here. And the Trident is right here.
Right.
So then without the cap, here's what it looks like. So Asylum stays exactly where it is today.
Yeah.
The freeway moves a little to the left here and down. And the railroad tracks are essentially at the same level as the freeway, but even farther to the left.
So this is, okay, and that's the Arts building right there, and the old train station. Okay, I'm just trying to, okay, yep. Thank you.
Sure.
Yep, thank you. And now the question is, where are you putting the train and bus, or train and or bus stations?
Exactly.
Right, but that's that's where you have to go with respect to, these are we're dotting I's and crossing T's, but that's where the highway has to be. That's where the trains are going to have to be at this point.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure,
That helps a lot.
So about 3 stories down would be accurate.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that one of the problems with the Asylum Street,
Yes.
Asylum Avenue rather, today, is that the craziest part of it is right where it comes into a V with Farmington and nobody, first of all, that doesn't live in the area for 50 years knows how to operate that, or how to work their way through that intersection in a car. And that is going to all be eliminated So you've got 4 streets coming together there. You've got Spring Street, Garden Street, the highway, Coswell, you know, the highway ramp coming up, the Coswell, Asylum, and Farmington Avenue, and Broad Street. So that's, a lot of that is going to change. So it's not going to be crossing Asylum Avenue, I think in the future, is not going to be the threatening thing that it is today.
We hope not. We hope not. We want to make it comfortable for everybody.
Well, thank you very much for helping us work through as we build in this context. And, you know, we're going to continue to refine these ideas and concepts and you know, obviously come back and show you our progress.
So we're talking as a team about keeping the momentum going. So as quickly as we can assemble another date and time and venue, we'd like to do that. It could be as quick as 2 or 3 weeks. We'll let folks know. And we'll try to format it a little differently so that folks who want to really sink their teeth into, say, the Trident area or the East End area have ample time. And then we'll also have the multimodal station discussion, and we'll keep things moving along pretty quickly. You know, we're here. You seem to have some more patience. Any thoughts, questions, comments?
Yes, Rich. Going back to the beginning when we were talking about the triangle and the closure of Broad Street at that point there, one of the things that you showed us as solutions was the making Asylum Avenue portion of it one way. So you're rerouting traffic in the existing street layout, and I was wondering, I looked at the earlier separate meeting, and that seemed to me to make a lot of sense to alleviate the traffic at that point where we want to cut off Broad Street and still keep Broad Street intact.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we can
We'll
maybe
explore that, yeah.
explore that a little bit further.
Some one-way changes that could potentially manage traffic and
Right.
keep that Broad Street connection.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? We're happy to.
If you did that though,
Yep.
one of the concerns.
My name is Jay Stan-McCauley, and I do business as Light Source Productions. I provide professional services in the area of strategic video communications. First, what we do is we help you craft your message using what I call the rule of the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why. We do event documentation, content acquisition, full-scale productions, editing, and of course distribution through our social media television network. And with social media, video is more important now than it has ever been. Whether you're talking big business, small business, nonprofit, church, or just an individual. Let's say you plan you're planning an event, a wedding, whatever the case may be. But let's say a big event, but no video. And you spent all this time, all these hours to put this event on, and maybe 100, 200 people attend the event. But more important than that is that thousands could attend by watching it on social media. But of course, you don't think about this until after the event is over. You can't afford not to capture it for social media. And despite what people think, I am affordable. Give me a call. Let's plan your next video project and share it with the world on my social media television network. I promise you that you will have the attention of one person, me.